episode of The Deep Life. I feel like we've been talking about having a podcast for years, and here we are, first episode. I think let's start it off how we began. It's been so long, like let's go back. Let's go back to that like pivotal moment. Yeah.
Okay.
Because I bet it's going to be different for both of us.
Yeah, I'm curious actually. We haven't really talked about this in a long time.
Oh, side note. If you hear a little pause, it's just Eddie.
Yeah. Don't be alarmed. Yeah.
Our dog Eddie. Okay, but yeah.
But yeah, here we are. So why? Mm-hmm. How did we get to where we are? I guess is the question. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it definitely goes back our whole life, I guess. Yeah. But then I would say this specific branch of our journey would have started probably roughly 10 years ago.
Yeah, I'd say that's kind of correct. And for anyone who doesn't know, we've been together for nearly 17 years. So we've kind of grown up together. And this entire health and wellness journey had like a lot of ebbs and flows, a lot of different stuff that came with it. But we weren't where we are today, obviously, when we first met. Because we were in high school. I mean, we were kids. We were 17 and 18. But I think when we started to pay more attention to it, we were even out of college at that point. Yeah,
probably just out of college.
Yeah.
Roughly like the 2010-ish.
Yeah, and we were living in Boston at the time.
So I'll say like going back just really quickly, my like fitness life, my life in fitness, it was usually kind of revolving around athletics. I was a athlete my whole life. So even from a young age, I was kind of obsessed with athletes, obsessed with superheroes, obsessed with being jacked.
Yeah.
Always wanted to be big and muscular. So at a young age, I'd be doing push-ups and lifting with dumbbells. I remember like seeing my dad work out and like knowing that's what I wanted to do, knowing it was good for me and cool to have big arms and muscles, and then sort of carried that over as I got older athletically. And especially like playing football, it was like always like bigger, faster, stronger, and I found that I was able to do that through exercise, through running, lifting weights, getting strong, eating a lot. I was able to kind of slowly put on muscle. I was always a really, really skinny kid, which definitely plays into it as well, and we can get deeper on that later. But yeah, through high school and then even through college, I played college football, and I was just obsessed with lifting all the time, eating all the time, trying to get as big and strong as possible. And then kind of what we're talking about now is shortly after that was the transition away from just trying to be bigger and faster and stronger to like being healthier and feeling better. So there was a lot of like repairing the parts of me that were broken down and injured, changing my mindset, changing the way I ate. And yeah, so that's sort of where we're going to start the story from for now. And yeah, and you were obviously
I had a similar experience with athletics because I played softball my whole life. I started when I was super young and played through college too. Only 2 years of college. I transferred schools after that. But in a different sense, I never thought of my body's capabilities in what I was doing athletic wise. I just knew it was like a form of exercise, but didn't correlate the two. I was never really into getting like bigger, faster, stronger like you were, because it wasn't necessary with softball. Faster, yes, and stronger, certainly, but it was definitely a different mentality, especially when it came to food, because I had such a disassociated understanding of how food was playing a role into my overall mental health, that I just thought I could eat anything because I was exercising through softball.
Right.
And then when I left my first college and stopped playing, I kind of stripped away that identity. Kind of like the same thing as you as a football player. Like we had put that mask on for so long of being athletes, and especially being ranked and known for our ability to perform in that aspect, we were losing it. And I kind of was like at a crossroads and didn't work out and didn't eat properly for years after that. And I remember around this mark about a decade ago when we were living together in Boston, and I had just returned from a trip with some girlfriends of mine, and I was looking at videos that we had taped of each other, just like dancing and having fun. And I looked at myself and I felt so ashamed with the way that my body had looked, because I had just, it was inflammation, and really what it is. I don't want to use the word overweight or anything, but I just knew my body wasn't what it used to be. It was so heart-wrenching to me. And that's when I began to do Insanity. I purchased it. I was so into the Beachbody thing, and I was at that time in a different career. I was working in a corporate industry where the demand of the hours, I was working 10 hours a day. That's not including the commute, and I just didn't know. And so the Beachbody was so appealing to me because it was 60 days or 90 days, I can't even remember how many it was, of a strict workout schedule that came along with recipes and food ideas for me to look at. And that is where I know it began.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think absolutely. I remember being really excited that you were getting excited about fitness at that point. And you clearly, it's been a progression, but there was just that excitement to get started.
Yeah. Because at this point too, you didn't have your personal training certificate. So we were really, this was the beginning of it. You already knew how to work out, but where we were living in Boston, it was a very small building in the North End. It was maybe 6 units. We didn't have a gym. We weren't gym members. You could work out through your college still because you did some work with them. But me, for myself,
yeah, we didn't have a gym.
The ideal place was our apartment, and it worked out perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was, I think, obviously a huge jumping off point.
Yes.
For you, it was the first time that we could kind of share fitness, which was really exciting. And I think looking back now, bigger than I realized at the time, because it is so important to be on the same page and try to support each other. I remember because when I finished playing football, I was pretty big.
Oh my gosh,
so
big.
So people who didn't know me back then, I was probably about 40 pounds heavier. A lot of muscle, and I was strong, but also kind of fat and bloated, and it was like that. Is that I was eating whatever. I just ate whatever. It was calories, more protein. All I cared about was how big I could get. And I did. I got big, but I was kind of gross and fat and bloated, inflamed for sure.
Yeah, me too.
And then I was once my career ended, like you said, I was still working at Northeastern, so I was able to use the gym there. And I decided I was going to get shredded, and I was going to get really lean, or not really lean, but I was going to lose the fat, but I wanted to stay big and strong. And it would be frustrating that we weren't on the same page diet-wise, where I wanted to start eating healthier, or at least what I thought was healthier at the time. And it's but would be just eating, tons of macaroni and tons of whatever, whatever we're used to.
Yeah, all I ate growing up, so that's what I was used to. And I think one of the things too that I took away from and learned a lot through the recipes or the suggestions that they give you through the Beachbody programs, because then I started to think about how I was making and preparing meals on my own, but also feeding into the suggestions that they were giving. Because remember, they would give me cereal suggestions and things like that. So we were still eating, and again, I obviously have the awareness now that they're paid to put those brands into those things. So we were shifting a little bit, which is, where we came up with the philosophy of building momentum, because we began shifting our mindset from that point to try to get healthier versions of the things that we liked to eat in that aspect. Right.
Yeah. So we were still very much in sort of that quick fix kind of mentality. Yeah. Whereas this will if I have this many calories, this much fat, this much protein, this many carbohydrates, then everything's going to be fine.
Yes.
And then, once I get in shape, I'll just be in shape forever.
Yeah, and it did help because it gave us a frame of reference and a really good way to understand portions, to understand calories coming from meat versus vegetables versus cheeses and milk. It kind of, I would say that, like I said, like this was the moment that we were like together and on the same page, and like light bulbs just started going off.
100%, yeah. And I think it's been, from that moment on, has been, whatever it is now, 11, 12 years of kind of slowly building momentum and building, and, you know, putting one step in front of the other. Like once we learn something, see, I've almost like transcend and include. Like that's always going to be a part of you, but then you can search out the ways to make that better. And it's been sort of like making one thing better at a time, slowly, and kind of never looking back, which has been, I guess we're lucky in that sense that we've had each other the whole time to support each other and like help each other learn. And and I think that's just what it is. That's we built momentum.
And then it stopped. So the ebbs and the flows of it.
Right.
My 30, 60, 90 days, I honestly can't remember, ended. And I, for one, was like a deer in headlights, not knowing what to do, because I had lost a lot of weight, a lot of inches coming off of Insanity. And after the program ended, I just didn't know what to do next, because I didn't have a gym. I mean, not that I couldn't become a member, but I just remember I just kind of was like in this flow, and I loved the groove of working out at home. Like, again, I was just working constantly, you know, at my corporate job and trying to make quick meals and stuff, and they were satiating in it, and it worked so well for those, you know, I'm going to say 3 months, that I just repeated the program. Remember? I think I asked you. I don't even remember. I just was like, I might have just been like high on it, and it was like, I'm going to do this again.
That's what I think you just kind of started it again, and just, if it worked, it's going to work forever kind of mentality, and jumped right back into it, and it just wasn't the same. It
wasn't the same, and you described it to me too, because I was getting so defeated because I gained a lot of the weight back, because I had been so restrictive with those 3 months, following the diet to a T. Like when I put my mind to something, I wanted this change to happen so badly that I was restricting myself, and I wasn't able to eat some of the cheat meals that I like, you know, the ice creams and the cupcakes. I mean, we're in the North End eating cannolis and the pastries and stuff.
The food in the North End of Boston is so good.
It's the Italian section of Boston. So I had restricted that. So I did incorporate that a little bit more, and I gained the weight back. And then my body, because I had been doing the exercises for the 3 months, wasn't challenging itself. So I had hit this plateau that I feel like the majority of people do at some point in their life, and I was so defeated. I was so upset with myself. I just was at a loss, and we kind of like regrouped after it a little bit, but like the cycle for myself mentally really did a toll, coming off of, you know, how unfortunately I treated my body before with an eating disorder that I hadn't recovered from at this point either. It was still in the midst of it, but I would say it definitely ramped it up a bit, because I was just needing to have a release of something that I felt I had transformed my body so quickly in 3 months, and then reverted right back to it. And it is a defeating purpose, which is where I really hope that I can help and shed light to people that, you know, the quick fix of 30, 60, 90 days is wonderful, and it was so beneficial for me, but there has to be goals and achievements and something new after that point. You almost need something more to challenge yourself and to go forward, to build that momentum, because I reverted right back to my old habits and old ways.
There needs to be a plan going forward. And like long-term goals are kind of so important, or just even like just a long-term vision of where you want to get to. Because at the end, like we said, at the end of whatever that is, the 30, 60, 90 days, if you're kind of like, now what? It can come crashing down pretty quick.
And I think, not to interrupt you, but I think too, like, being with you in a relationship was really interesting, because even though you were, yes, inflamed and bigger, like you were still very muscular, and you could still see your abs protruding through, and and you were eating the same things as me. And so I felt so insecure, even though it's like a male-female dynamic.
Yeah.
Like, why am I gaining all this weight? Why is it me that's like just feeling so insecure about my body? And like, I know that you had insecurities that you were probably like hiding yourself, but like physically seeing it much more on my body than yours was like defeating in a way that like, do you ever feel or like, how did you feel like when I started to like revert back and basically spiral down again into?
Well, yeah, I guess there's like two things there. So first, I felt bad. I think it was a big part of it. And because like, I like you said before, like I wasn't a trainer then. I didn't really have the knowledge that I have now, anywhere near it. But I did know a good amount. Like at that point in my life, I had been training myself consistently for over 10 years. I would constantly I'd be reading blog posts and articles and magazines. At that point you're still like, you would still get like Muscle and Fitness magazine. So I was reading that stuff, and then like tons of like T-Nation blogs and all the blogs that are on the internet. So I was constantly studying and learning things, and I did know, like I knew about training progressively. And I think that's a big part of what I was doing at that time, where you kind of went back to doing the exact same workouts again, where I was still, my mindset was like, okay, like each 3 weeks or each month I'm going to change and I'm going to progress. And I was lifting weights, which makes it a lot easier to progress, because you can lift heavier one week than the next when you're doing all like body weight cardio type like HIIT workouts. You get to a point where you can only go so fast in the 30-second block or whatever it is, that it's really, really hard to progress. Yes. Without having longer and longer workouts, like progressively longer, which nobody wants. So your body had adapted to the sort of the cardio elements of the workout, because that's what bodies will do. The human body is going to become efficient at what it needs to be efficient at, and especially like with cardio, you get really, really efficient, and efficient sounds like it's what you want, but if you're trying to burn fat, you kind of want to be inefficient, so that your body needs to work harder, needs to burn calories, needs to burn the fat that's on your body. So when you went back and repeated it, it was like really frustrating, or not really, it was upsetting to see you frustrated, because I knew you were working really hard, but you weren't getting the results that you wanted, and it was this big step back. And another part of that you kind of touched on is like the male-female difference is like hormonally we're really, really different. I have way more testosterone than you. It's easier for me to build muscle than it is for you to build muscle, and because I had so much muscle on my body, that's burning calories, burning fat. So I was just having muscle on your body causes you to burn a lot more calories, a lot more energy throughout the day, and stay leaner. It's like one of these things, like as you build muscle, you're like investing in this cycle of staying leaner. Like it's easier to burn fat when you have more muscle, and it just, then as you work out, you build more muscle, and then it gets easier and easier, and you can just kind of become leaner over time. And I think that is a lot easier for men than it is for women. Sure. And also the difference is like you had been working out a little bit through your softball career, but hardly. Right. It's like you never tried to get stronger, you never tried to put on muscle. Where I had so much time of like consistently working out 4 or 5 days a week for 10 years up to that point. Right. Yeah. That really, really helped me. Yeah.
And no one told me that, right? That's like, that's what we're there. I always like, I give my younger self, my college self, like a hug every now and once in a while, because I didn't know what I know now, what you're describing. And we, as much of as a relationship we were in, we weren't as vulnerable as we are at this point either. Not. So we weren't having the dialogue that we're having now. So if you had said that to me, then I probably would have taken it you know, very differently, or that my mind frame would have been able to adapt to, you know, building the muscle in the correct ways that I needed to at that point. But I just, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It's a hard thing. And even then, at that point, when you were working out and excited about it, you weren't trying to build muscle.
No,
like,
I
that
wasn't.
was the last thing
I
you
was
wanted.
scared to.
But
Yes,
you were,
right.
you were as cliche and
Yes.
basic as it gets. Like, I don't want to be bulky. I don't want to put
Oh
muscle.
God. Is that what they call basic?
I think.
But yes, you're absolutely right. I was petrified to do that. Yeah, and insanity is completely, cardio based.
Yeah.
Like, it's body weight muscle that
Right.
you're building. And I did feel like I got toned, but yeah, you're totally right. I was.
So I think that was, because I don't think you didn't start lifting weights till we got to San Francisco, right?
Yeah, I was gonna
Like,
say.
if I remember correctly,
the progression, and then, because then after the hiccup of repeating insanity for the second time, then I began getting the newer Beachbody ones. I got like the Shailene, or forgive me, I forget her name, but it was all about the kickboxing, and that was different.
Like Turbo Fire.
Or something. Yeah, I did that for a couple months.
That had some resistance, right? So that was band.
There was bands.
I'm trying to remember
was all
these,
like boxing and stuff. Like
That's right.
lots of things. There was yoga incorporated too. So again, like it was as wonderful as the programs were, and then detrimental at the same time. They brought so much awareness.
Yeah.
Especially doing that one that she incorporated like a full day of like yoga, stretching. I think Insanity did too, but regardless, and I was getting new recipes and stuff. So it was just getting the wheels turning in my head a little bit more. And then I did like Insanity, like quick fix or something, where it was only 20-minute workouts and stuff. I just kept doing the Beachbody ones until we moved to San Francisco, which was, I would say, like as much as the Boston was our turning point in the beginning of this fitness and health and wellness trajectory, moving to San Francisco,
such a huge paradigm shift.
I would say was life-changing.
Yes.
In the best way possible.
Yeah, and I think that I feel like that whole year or a year and a half or
my
whatever
gosh,
it was
right?
should be like an episode in itself.
I was just going to say, this is
that
probably the perfect ending to it, because we're going to talk for so much on how San Francisco changed our lives.
Yeah.
That's when you got your certification. Yeah. That's when I started lifting heavy. So that's like, I feel like the perfect ending to our introduction on how we began the health and wellness journey through Boston in our younger age. And now we can move on to the next episode.
To where we start really building momentum.
Oh my gosh, which is like, again, I can't think of a better word other than life-changing.
Yeah.